Welcome back, you guys, at Choking Hazard. My name is Zach, and today we're going to be talking about another games journalist having kind of a crappy hot take opinion, and her name is Leah Williams. Don't harass, the way I was about to say harass her. Don't harass her. I looked through her other stuff if she had any other bad hot takes and, bad reviews and things like that, but she's actually on the up and up. She does a lot of good reviews. So don't beat her up or harass her. There's always one idiot on the internet. You have to say that too. Everybody has a bad opinion once in a while. Everybody has opinions. It's just like assholes. So don't, get your panties in a bunch. But yeah, let's talk about her opinion though. So her opinion says Cyberpunk 2077 uses sexism as a set dressing. Right off the gate, give me a sip. I'm gonna get a sip. Cheers. Right out the gate, I don't really think it's like sexism, because sexism would be like talking about one particular group of people being singled out, right? Like one particular sex being singled out for whatever purpose. And I don't think it's just females being over sexualized in this game. I think it's both men and women and transgender people. So they kind of have the whole group, the whole shebang being sexualized in this game. It's not just women. But let's go ahead and talk about her opinion. It says, including breasts in your game doesn't make it adult, but it seems nobody passed that memo to CD Projekt. Including breasts in your game doesn't make it adult, but it seems nobody passed on the memo to CD Projekt Red. Cyberpunk 2077 is the latest R18, I think she meant M18, adventure to confuse sex with taboo. So she's saying that they're confusing sex with taboo. The thing is, though, is that taboo just means not a societal norm, okay? So anything that's not a societal norm, and it just depends on what your society is. Like if you're living in another country, your societal norm will be different than mine. And it says you're confusing sex with it. Thing is, though, is that if you make sex to the extreme in your society, it becomes taboo. See what I'm saying? So, for example, let's just say like Muslim countries or whatever, Muslim or more Indian, I guess you'd say, sort of countries, they are not as sexual in nature than, let's say, more westernized countries. And I'm saying that in general. There's obviously some certain areas that are completely different, but Muslims in general, right, because of their religion, you want to be more covered up. You know what I mean? You don't want to be as sexually out there, I guess you'd say, than, for example, a place like Brazil or Colombia, where my wife is from, or just America. Right? So Spanish countries are a lot more sexually revealing and more, I wouldn't say sexually active, but more revealing than even American countries. So if you took somebody from, let's say, a Muslim country and you put them into Brazil, they'd be like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? They'd be like, what is going on here? That's completely different. So for him, that would be, or for him, or for her, anybody who's in that country, from, if they're from a Muslim majority country, they would be like, what? Like, they'd be like, this is too much, right? That would be very taboo for them. Now, if you take a place like America, which has a lot of, sexual things in nature, especially in advertisements and things like that, and you just fucking over-sexualize the shit out of the advertisement to the point where it's taboo, it would be taboo. For example, in the game, there's this thing called Chromos something. It's a energy drink. Chromanticore, there it is. Chromanticore, it's an energy drink in the game. And it's advertised through this transgender woman with this big schlong coming through her leotard. And she has like a raging erection while drinking the soda. Now, just imagine for a second, if we took that advertisement and just threw that up on Times Square, right? Let's just say that. Imagine the outrage some people would go over that. They'd be like, there's kids out here that see that shit. There's this and that. Like, nobody wants to see this or that. You know what I mean? There would be like an outcry. There'd be all over the news. You would hear definitely Fox News talking about it. So it is taboo. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? If you put any of these ads up in America in like Times Square or something like that, it'd be fucking ridiculously taboo. Like, what are you talking about? Taboo is just something that's not the societal norm. So this is not the societal norm. You don't push this shit up out in the open. You know what I mean? There's very few places. Like, I think like in Texas, you can see if you're driving through, there's like one like strip club that they're advertising, and there's like a girl with like a bra on or something like that. But it's not like this, or like the Chromanticore thing, where you like see a schlong and things like that just hanging out. Like it's not like that. So I don't agree with that. I think you can make anything taboo if you just put it to the extreme. Sex isn't featured too prominently in Cyberpunk 2077's narrative, but is plastered everywhere else. Billboards, posters, and street signs. You'll see ads for Bottoms Up, a brain dance episode featuring women bouncing her arse in man's delighted face. Yeah, there's this sign right here. The thing is, too, is that one of her gripes, too, is that I've already read the article, so I'm kind of like jumping all over the place here, but one of her problems that she has is that the main storyline doesn't touch on the sexism, even though there's sexism and objectification everywhere else in the game. And the thing is that if you haven't played the game yet, and I don't want to spoil anything, there's bigger fish to fry when it comes to story and bad things happening than sexism and objectification. They talk about that stuff way more in the main story. But the thing is, though, is that it does actually represent itself in the story and the atmosphere in the game. Like, you kind of need it, actually. Because the thing is, it'd be really weird in the game. Like, I get it if, let's say, this was the thing that was happening in the game. If there was, if it looked like normal society just run down a little bit, and then there's just these weird posters everywhere, and everybody's in a suit and tie, and they're like, whoa, these posters are really weird, and they just kind of walk by like nothing really happened, I'd be like, yeah, the posters are kind of weird and kind of off-putting because it doesn't really fit the world. Thing is, though, is that it really does fit the world, because if you actually walk through the cities in the game and you kind of actually just kind of look around for a little bit, there's a strip club on every corner. It's almost like damn Waffle House in Mississippi. Like, if you've been to Mississippi, Waffle House is like gas stations. Like, there's just one on every fucking corner. So the fact that there's a strip club, there is like these crazy rave places or whatever, where you're supposed to be like naked or like in like bras and panties and stuff like that. There's gay strip clubs. There's transgender shit everywhere. I mean, there's whores just walking around the streets like no big deal. Everybody is super over-sexualized and objectified. So the fact that she's like, well, there's no real storyline being put into it, there is. The atmosphere in the game is very over-sexualized. And here's an example. I'll give you an example of something where they say one thing but mean another. If you ever played the first Bioshock, there's these propaganda pieces everywhere in Bioshock. And what they say is that freedom is great and like screw God and capitalism and communism. You know, you work for the sweat off your brow or whatever, and you keep what you obtain through your work and stuff like that. So it's like the ultimate freedom, the ultimate what would you call it, libertarianism kind of. The problem is, though, is that in that society it is so extreme for freedom that intrude on people's freedoms with your freedom. That's how free it is. So it's kind of like an all-out war. It's like the Wild Wild West in Bioshock. So in these posters in Bioshock, they'll say one thing. They'll be like, freedom's great, and try this, and it's very corporate and stuff like that. But then when you actually look at the world that came through all of that, it looks like shit, and it looks like hell. So what you can do is, like, in Bioshock, they never say once, like, they never explain once that, oh, this place is really bad because of, you know, on these posters and stuff like that. They never say anything's bad. All the posters are all propaganda. So they're always like, everything's good, everything's not bad, like nothing's bad here, everything's great. But then when you look at the world, you're like, oh, that's not what's happening. It's completely bad. And that's the thing. That's the same thing here. The corporate people in Cyberpunk 2077, they're corporate people. They're trying to sell people shit, right? They're trying to sell to the masses, and it's all propaganda. So they'll say one thing where they're like, they over-sexualize everything, and everything sex is good. It's not extreme. Even when you make it the extreme degree, everything's fine. But when you look around the city, it's not fine. Everyone's living in dumps. Everybody is addicted to something. If it's like robotic, drugs or whatever. If it is just sex in general. If it's just putting metal pieces to your body. There's a whole atmosphere to it, and you don't have to really say anything out loud because the visual storytelling is so good that you can kind of see it play through the game. There's also Chromanticore posters supporting a female presenting model with a prominent penis and a word "mix it up." So yeah, it's a transgender person. So it says it's been called out for being fetishistic. Is that a word? I don't even know. I have never used that word before. Primarily because it is used as a tasteless set dressing, which I don't agree with. I think people were mad about it because it had something to do with transgender people. to be honest with you. That's what I think personally. And the thing is, like, in society right now, you can't really say anything about, like, transgender people in a negative sort of fashion or sexualize them or anything negative. Anything objectifying or anything like that, you can't do that right now. They're kind of like a protected class of people. You know, everybody knows that. Like, I don't want to hear any bullshit. It's like, they're not protected class or not. They are, 100%. I mean, if you say anything on Twitter about that, even if it's, like, a good thing, someone, like, will attack you for it. So it's like, it's not... Anything you say about transgender people is kind of like a taboo thing at the moment. And it's funny that she's saying that there's nothing taboo right now. They're like, it's like they said, confusing sex with taboo. It's taboo. I mean, if you imagine putting that on Times Square, transgender person with a ranging schlong, like nobody would be okay with that. It's totally taboo. Like, I don't know what you're talking about, dude. But yeah, it's a transgender thing. People are just upset about that because it's transgender. I'm sure if there was a dude up there, no one would say anything. They'd be like, whatever. These advertisements are designed to shock and to mark out Cyberpunk 2077's world as unique. They're designed to present a future where sex has become normalized, corporatized, and sold back to the masses. Yeah, it's true. I don't see anything wrong with that. That makes sense in that type of world. But there's nothing unique or shocking about sexualization of females and transgender bodies. What about the dudes? You left off the dudes. You're just like women and transgender bodies. And you're just like, the dudes are sexualized in the game. Like, what are you talking about? What is shocking is Cyberpunk 2077's commitment to making players feel uncomfortable at every turn. Yeah, it is uncomfortable. I mean, there's like these crazy weird advertisements right outside your door, like right outside your house in the game, and it's weird. Like, if you like, because you think about it, like in your own society and like societal norms right now, you like, that's fucking weird. It's supposed to be shocking and uncomfortable. Like, I don't understand. Like, shocking and uncomfortable is fine if it's used for it. Like, the world is like entrenched in like that kind of like objectifying, what do you call it? Objectification and sexual, like, over sexualization of people. It's ridiculous, and it's not, you know. And it's funny because I don't think they go over it right here, but it's not. It's objectification of everybody. Like, the dudes are objectified in a way because guys are used as just like pawns in like in wars, like gang wars and stuff like that. Women are used as sexual objects, right? Transgender people as well. And then there's even people at a certain point in the game. I'm trying not to be like, this is kind of spoiler territory, but you get to a really nice hotel, right? You get this really nice hotel, and the workers at the hotel, so the people who are like poor, are wearing like these robotic masks so that you can't see their faces. They look like robots, but they're people. And the thing is that they look like that because they're lower down on the rung than the big corporate people, the big rich, the big wigs. So when you're in this hotel talking to them, you can talk to them like trash, and they have to take it because they're like robots. They make them objects in the game purposely because they're worthless people. They're worthless underlings. We don't care about them. Wear this mask. We don't want to see your disgusting face, and you're an object that has to obey our every command. And that's not even like the sexual part. They're just objectifying everybody. Like, from anybody who's not rich down, objectification. Guys, girls, whoever, transgender people, it's everybody. So it's kind of funny. Like, they're thinking that it's about just women and transgender people, when in reality, it's not even about like sex. It's about like literally everything. Comes to jobs, they objectify people, you know, and when it comes to women, they objectify people. When it comes to dudes, just like being murderers and getting something done for their gang or whatever, they're objectifying them too. I thought this was kind of funny. It says Cyberpunk 2077's world tailors every piece of advertising to the male gaze. I always like this word whenever they whenever articles are written, the male gaze, like we have some sort of like superpower or something like that. Like, watch out for the male gaze. But like, what's kind of funny though is that it's not just for the male gaze. Like, you were just talking about transgender people. Like, I'm sure there's like a fetish for that, right? But like, personally for me, and I know a lot of other dudes, when you're like walking by the woman with like the 9-inch schlong drinking a soda, you're not like, wow, that really turned me on. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just not appealing at all. It's actually very fucking weird, you know? It's strange to me. I don't personally like that, and it's out of my wheelhouse, you know what I mean? So like, it is taboo. So it's just kind of funny that they're like, it's for the male gaze, and it's like, I don't know about that. That's one of the most one of the most popular advertisements in the game too. So I don't know. I don't think it's just for the male gaze, you know? Filling the world of Cyberpunk 2077 with dildos is all well and good, but what purpose do they serve other than remind players of Night City's obsession with sex? I mean, that's kind of one of the big reasons. As an Easter egg, sure, it's funny, but when you start packing the entire world with dongs, there's a far more aggressive sexual message behind it, particularly when so much of the dialogue and imagery treats women as disposably. Beyond making female players uncomfortable, it's also embarrassing to see female bodies treated so tastelessly in the game. More often than not, they're also depicted with faces covered, hiding identities while inviting vulgarism of their bodies. Yeah, so the thing is, though, is that happens with guys and girls in the game. As I said earlier, that there's a rich place where people have to wear like masks to cover up their faces. It's not just sexualization. It's everybody's being objectified in one way or another. People are kind of disposable in this game. I mean, you even get like, you kind of already know it's going to happen in the game, but at some point in the game, you're going to be betrayed by somebody. And the thing is that you're disposable in that situation. They don't need you anymore. You're gone. So I think one of the big messages in Cyberpunk is that people are disposable in the game, unless you're like really rich people. Everybody's disposable. If you're not useful anymore, you're gone. The thing is, though, is I think what she's doing is that she's conflating women's issues, or she's not conflating. She's like using a microscope on the women's issues thing, which is fine. Like, you can do that. But then she's like missing out. She's tunnel visioning on that, but then she's missing out on like what else is happening in the world. And you're like, it's like, yeah, there's the bad things that are happening with women. That's bad and awful. The whole world in this fucking place is bad and awful, you know? But the thing is, though, is that everybody's being objectified. Everybody's being taken advantage of in one way or another. It's not just the women part. So I think she's kind of confusing the whole women thing, you know, like if it's like it's just them. But in reality, like, everybody's getting kind of fucked over in this place, you know? Among frequent references to male genitalia, Cyberpunk 2077 will occasionally reference casual, extreme violence against women. You look like a fuckable cut of meat is a particular egregious example of what one woman is told early in the early moments of Cyberpunk 2077. Yeah, well, so the guy who said that was this thing. And this guy is like this barbaric monster robot thing. It's a bad guy. So he would say something like that. So I know that's like one of the examples, but it's kind of like that guy's a bad guy. He's kind of supposed to say that. And the other thing too is that the women are getting yelled at and said bad things to. That's kind of painting the world in that way, you know. And the men are not treated any better. I mean, they're treated pretty bad too. I mean, most of them are being killed and stuff like that in the game. I mean, you could say we could make a whole article here talking about the violence against men and stuff like that in the game. But that's kind of the point, right? Like, the game is acknowledging that they're showing off that it's bad for women and bad for men. So it's kind of strange that they're kind of she's kind of jumping over that. Like, you see what they said? And it's like, yeah, well, the guy stabbed me, so I don't know what's worse. I'd rather be called a fuckable cut of meat than being stabbed to death or shot at or something like that. Jesus. Okay, so it says you can argue the world and narrative shows how women can thrive despite the hyper-corporatization of sex and constant undermining, but Cyberpunk 2077 doesn't attempt to paint the sexualization of women as a wrong in any way. That's horseshit, though. And the reason why it's kind of stupid that she said that is because the world looks like fucking shit in the game. And the thing is, I think she's expecting people to kind of like spoon-feed her information, right? She's expecting the developers of the game to be like, hitting women is bad. You shouldn't do that. You know what I mean? And like go through that, the whole rigmarole and storyline of that. But you don't actually have to say anything for you to get like a message across. You know, it's like, as I said before, I think BioShock did a great example of that, where they do propaganda in the game. Where it's saying like, oh, freedom's great and everything, freedom's good, and then you're like, okay, well, it says that everywhere, like too much freedom, like extreme freedom. They're like, extreme freedom's good. And then you look around and you're like, but it led to this. It's like shithole here. You know what I mean? Like, Rapture fucking sucks. And the fact that these propaganda pieces are saying good things about it doesn't really mean anything when you look around the world. And it's the same thing here. When there's posters and stuff like being like, come to the Watson Whore area, or transgender soda, or whatever, and they're just saying all these like weird things, and then you see what actually the aftermath of acting like that is, you go, wow, so it's actually really shitty. So it actually is saying that it's a bad thing. If you just look around the world and you kind of take in the visual storytelling, The most frustrating part in Cyberpunk 2077 doesn't need the set dressing to be fun. Yeah, I mean, you can play the game without the set dressing. It just gives it more of like a vibrant feel to everything, and also makes how do I say it? Gives like flavor to the world. It gives kind of like this like overarching kind of weird, eerie, weird, strange, sexual, fetishy atmosphere to it. And I don't think the game would be the same without it, in my opinion. I mean, there's hookers and fucking strip clubs on every corner, and you're telling me that there's not going to have an advertisement for it on every corner? Like, get out of here. She goes on to say it's actually extremely fun and involving. Cyberpunk's story is a little too thin in places, but overall, gameplay, exploration, and narrative is genuinely enjoyable. She said that the sex feels tacked on unnecessarily, a poor attempt to create a controversy for controversy's sake. Nah, I don't know. It is like vulgar and things like that, but I think it like does make the world feel very strange and different. I think it actually, if you took it out, it would make the world feel it'd make the world feel less vulgar. Like the world is supposed to be like this vulgar, shitty place, like used car salesmen everywhere, And I think if you took that away and like the strip clubs and all like the sexualization and stuff like that, it would feel like normal society a lot more. Like it would kind of look the same. Like there would still be cars. It looked like Grand Theft Auto when you go into a shitty neighborhood. It wouldn't look like Cyberpunk. It actually does kind of have its own style, and like it's just sexually aggressive people and like the environment sexually aggressive. It's strange. It's weird, and it feels interesting. So I don't know. I don't agree with that. So I don't know. I just don't agree with it. What do you guys think? Comment below. Let me know. I think it's a little bit interesting that she had this take on it, because I think they pretty much point blank tell you just through visuals alone that it's really shitty to have all these things. You don't have to straight up say out loud, hey, this is bad. You should not like this. I don't know. It's kind of weird. But anyways, you guys, thank you guys so much for watching. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning for me, so I need to go to bed. And see ya. Hey, you made it to the end. That means you must enjoy my content, so go ahead and love tap that subscribe button for me. And if you don't like my content, subscribe anyways. My videos are proven to make your schlong longer. Follow me on Parler if you want additional content updates, or if you want to interact with me personally. And join my BitChute channel for additional content. Thanks, you guys. See ya.